Welcome to the Home Plus video education series. Today we're going to talk about doing seal and spacer and piston replacement on the Fleck 2510 AIO control valve. This valve is used on all Home Plus Iron Rival and Iron Plus systems, as well as many systems made by other manufacturers. We're going to show this video and procedure in two different methods. One using a seal and spacer replacement toolkit that is manufactured by the valve manufacturer, and we're also going to show it with a little bit of a hack process that will allow you to do it without the toolkit. So this one is the seal hook, the stuffer tool, the puller tool, the replacement piston, and the seal and spacer kit. So the first thing we need to do is to isolate the valve from the water lines. So this is your water line connections, your outlet and inlet. This is your bypass assembly. You may have a stainless steel one. We are then going to set our bypass into bypass mode from service mode by turning both of these handles 90 degrees. So to depressurize the system, we're going to start by removing this screw here. Alright, and opening up the valve. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to purge the air out of your system. I'm going to start by pressing and holding the extra cycle button for 5 seconds. And we can hear the motor moving the piston now into our backwash mode, and we see the backwash is now counting down. At this point, we've released any pressure in the system to our drain, and we can simply skip through the remaining processes by pressing the extra cycle button. Okay, we've now moved to the brine draw position. Now we can skip ahead yet again. Now we're in the rapid rinse position. We can skip ahead one last time. And we have returned to our normal service mode. Now we're going to disconnect the valve from the plumbing lines with the water now bypassed, so you can continue to have water to the home while we're doing this. Over here we have our drain clip. So the first thing we're going to do is pull up on our drain clip to remove it. And we're going to disconnect our drain line. So that is the drain adapter. You would have an actual pipe attached to that, but that would now be disconnected. Now we're going to disconnect the valve from the plumbing lines with the water now bypassed, so you can continue to have water to the home while we're doing this by removing this clip and the corresponding clip on the other side. And we do that with a regular screwdriver. So with the clips removed on both sides, the bypass can now be disconnected, and we just slide the tank away from the plumbing. And we've now got the valve and system isolated. Nice to have a towel on hand to catch a small amount of water that's likely to drip out. Okay, so now with the valve removed from the plumbing, we can turn our attention to removing the valve from the tank. And we do that by removing this one screw here and slide it free and remove the collar. Note that one side says top. You'll need to notice that when you put it back together. So now with that removed, With a little wiggle, we can remove the valve from the tank. There is an O-ring here that we need to be careful of. Set it aside and make sure that it is well protected. Removing the cover again. We're going to take the cover right off this time. Okay. There's a pin right here. Just going to pull that pin out. Take the cover away. Alright, so we're going to give ourselves a little bit of access here by just opening this up. You can see there are two screws, one right there and one right there, that we're going to remove next. And then there's also a little clip right here that we're going to pull out. So in this operation here, not all valves will have that. Okay, so we're going to start by removing the inlet check valve. We check the operation of that to make sure it's still working. We grasp it, just give it a little wiggle. Grasp it, give it a little wiggle, and we'll just set those aside. We're going to turn our attention to the injectors assembly here. Let's tilt that so we can see it. Regular screwdriver. And we're just going to screw this. And then we can remove this assembly here. Just be careful with this gasket that we don't lose it, and we'll set that aside as well. Now we'll pull the piston out here. This might be a little bit hard to grasp, so if you grab the very end of it with a pair of pliers and give it a pull, it should come out. So in this case, it actually pulled some of the old seal and spacers with it, and we can actually see that one of them is completely mangled in there, and this is likely what was causing the problem with this valve. And there we can see the very damaged seal. It should look more like that. So we need to remove the remaining seals and spacers. So it's going to be seal, spacer, seal, spacer, etc. in there. So we can use this tool, or you can route around with your fingers and pull them out. Alright, or you can use your fingers, reach in there, pull it out. Okay. Next one in line is a spacer. We use a puller tool. Insert that, press down on the button until it pops. Pull out. You can see we removed one there. Okay. Or you can go in with your fingers again, and you can pull it out that way as well. And then we're going to alternate back to our seal hook, and back to our puller. And we're going to keep doing that until they're all gone. At the very back, there's a white ring in there, and it can be a little troublesome to get at, but if you push on it with your fingers, you can usually push it free and get it out. There it is, the old one. Now everything is removed from this valve. We recommend that you clean it with some CLR or Lime Away. Best to let it soak for a little while. So when we reinstall, we're going to have our back piece, then seal, spacer, seal, spacer, seal, spacer, seal, spacer, seal, spacer, seal. That's the order they're going to go in.
and we're going to reinsert them all back in here. On this piece here, one side of it has a sharp little groove. That sharp little groove needs to mate up with one of the seals, so it has to face outward. Okay? So when we load this in here, we need to pay attention to that or it won't work. And we need to get that piece right to the very back. You get it right to the back there, you can see it in position. You can catch a B-roll of that close up later. Okay. Now, if you happen to have the stuffer tool, you can use this to insert the remaining pieces. But before we do, we're going to take some food grade silicone lubricant and we're going to lubricate all of the seals. We get them all ready. Apply a little bit to each one. Okay, so if you have the toolkit, you start on this end. You take a seal, and you stuff it in there. This bracer can be a little tricky. It wants to pop itself out. So you get it sitting in there like that. And it's a good idea to put your valve vertical here. Insert it all the way down, push it down nice and tight, and pop it up. Okay, so you take one of the spacers, lay it on there while you're pushing the button in. And this one you want to turn the opposite way, shoot it in from the bottom, flip it over, and leave it in there. And we just continue on until we have all of them in there. And our last one. Okay, on the last one, we want to push down nice and tight. Pull it out. And you can see they're all stacked in there. We're going to install our piston next. With a food grade silicone lubricant again on the O-ring. And we kind of put on the valve with the earth. Okay, and pull that in there like that, and pull it down nice and tight. Okay, it'll stick up about a 1/16 of an inch right there. That's totally normal for now. And that's all there is to loading the seal and spacers. So if you don't have the tool, we're going to use a piece of rolled up waterproof paper. This is fairly stiff paper, and we're going to roll it up so it's a little bit tighter than, or a little bit smaller than the seals and spacers, and we're going to just start sliding along here, alternating. Okay, once we have them all ready, we're going to let the paper expand, which will kind of tighten up on these. We're going to make sure they're all nicely aligned. And we're going to carefully set that down in there. Get a little bit of help. Okay, we're going to grab 3 of our old spacers. We're going to use them to help us push these down. Slip those on. Okay, and now we're going to use those spacers to help us push everything down nice and tight. There we go. And while we're holding this down, we're going to slide our paper out. And we're going to pull out our 3 spacers that we don't need. And we have them all nicely installed. Okay. And then we're going to slip our piston in and use some food grade lubricant on the O-ring here. Bring this piston back into position. And it'll stick up about the 16th to an 1/8 of an inch. That was totally normal. Okay, so now we're going to do our removal of our injectors. A little string here. That can be clean. And then our injectors are in here, and there are 2 of them. Screwdriver. There's our first injector. There's another one in there. And there's our second injector. And again, that can be cleaned as well. Okay, so we're going to reinstall our injectors here. The small injector goes in first. Drop it into the hole. There's screws in here. And as soon as you start feeling resistance, you are done. We'll use our bigger injector. Next. In. Okay. Our screen back in there. Make sure our O-ring is still here. You'll see there's an O-ring on the underside of this one as well. Everything is lined up. And we can reinstall that on our valve. Okay. Again, making sure everything lines up. Get this. Starting with the fingers. Regular screwdriver in. And just snug but not ridiculously tight. Now we're going to reattach our inlet check valve and our spacer. There's some O-rings on here. We're going to use food grade silicone lubricant again. Push that into place. And make sure our spring is working. And make sure the boss here for attaching the screw is on the outside. Same with the spacer. Lubricant on there. And we're going to push it into place. Okay, so now we're going to reattach the valve here. So we're going to bend this up out of the way a little bit. It's not interfering. We're going to take our screw and insert it through the hole here. And it's going to line up with that hole there. We're going to do the same thing with the bottom screw. Okay, before we get everything too tight, we're going to reconnect this here. Now we're going to tighten down on our screw here. When we have it tightened correctly, there should be no space right here. It should be nice and tight against the valve and the back plate. Snug. Again, not too tight. Okay. Now we just need to secure the piston to the arm here, and that can be pretty tricky. Push that in until it clicks. Okay, we can secure this back into its hole. Snaps into place. Okay, secure that covering in. We're done. Okay, so now we're going to reinstall our O-ring with some food grade silicone lubricant. And we're going to make sure that it fits nicely into all of our channels. If it doesn't fit well and it's stretched out, it needs to be replaced. Now we're going to reinstall the valve. See that these dimples are going to line up. Okay, so dimples are going to line up here. Now we're going to reinstall our clamp. Make note of the fact that it says top on the top. This can be installed upside down and it'll cause a problem. Give it a squeeze here. Slide that over. And then we use our screwdriver to secure it. When you're tight, when this starts reaching here, we're going to shimmy the tank into position here and push it into the bypass. And then we're going to secure it with our clips. Okay, so our clip's going to go right here. And we're going to do the same on the other side. Alright, so screw it. Okay, we're going to turn our bypass back to the service position. Open up the cover. We're going to reset the time. Press and hold any of these two buttons here for a few seconds. And the time of day. Use the up and down arrows to set it to the correct time. We'll pretend that it is 12:15 right now. Press this button to save it. And we are now back in service mode. And before we assume everything's complete, we're going to run it through a regeneration. So we're going to press and hold this button for 5 seconds. Okay, and we're backwashing. And we're going to allow it to go through all of its paces until it is complete, and it'll recharge our air pocket in the top of the tank, and we'll be all good to go.